Welcome to the Ride This Out podcast, where we talk about how to improve your mental health and strengthen your connection to nature and your community, all through one simple solution: the bicycle. My name is Zach Golding, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker and mental health therapist. I'll be your host as we discuss the power of pedaling. All right, in this week's session, I talk with Stephen Dunn, aka the Biking Fireman, on Instagram. He is a firefighter in New Jersey. I came across his account through Instagram, just seeing the advocacy work that he does and just talking about his love and joy for biking. So I thought it'd be fun to interview him and hear a little bit more of his story and what he does. So thanks again for your support, for sharing this with others. The whole point and purpose of this is to spread the joy and the love of biking and encourage others to ride to benefit their mental health. So enjoy this week's session. Thanks again, but if you want to just start off by introducing yourself, who you are, where you're from, what you do, kind of all those good things.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Stephen Dunn. I live in Kenilworth, New Jersey, and I'm a firefighter in Elizabeth, New Jersey, which is a couple towns over. I've been a firefighter for 6 years. Before that, I was an EMT for 6 years. So first responder now. Well, even more than that. Jeez, it's crazy how fast time goes. But over 15 years now as first responder. I'm a father. I have two boys, 10 and a 9-year-old. I can't believe they're that old already. It's crazy. And I'm also a bike commuter. So I've been riding my bike for a little over 10 years to work. And it's been, in 2020, January 2020, I decided I'm not going to drive my car to work at all anymore. And so it's been almost 4 years now complete since I last drove a car to the firehouse. So that's my claim to fame, the Biking Fireman on social media.
That's awesome. That's a commitment right there. How far is your commute that you go to the firehouse?
So it varies depending on which firehouse I'm at. Right now, my firehouse just moved. So if I'm at the firehouse I'm assigned to, it's about 5.5 miles. But also, we have what's called details. So if one firehouse is short, we get sent to a different firehouse. So the farthest one is about 8.5 miles. So the most I would have to ride in a given morning is 8.5 miles or so.
Okay. That's not too bad. That's a good little commute, though, I'm sure, with all the traffic and everything you got going on. I'm curious, how did you get into firefighting? What was the motivation behind that? Why did you want to become a firefighter?
Well, it's interesting. It wasn't like a childhood dream, I think, to be a firefighter. Um, but so I went to college and everything, and I thought I was supposed to kind of get a white collar job, I guess. And let's see, between my junior and senior year of college, I thought maybe I wanted to be a police officer, and I looked into how to be a police officer, and they said, become an EMT. That's a good stepping stone. So I volunteered as an EMT at my local first aid squad. And then I graduated college and I went and got a job in life insurance, and I hated it. I lasted like 3 months. I'm kind of an outdoors kind of person, and I'm also, I need, I guess, security. So it was like commission based, and man, the idea of having to make sales to make money killed me. So I went and got a job as an EMT. Didn't make a lot of money, but I really enjoyed it, like being outside, liked helping people. And then from EMT, I was kind of looking into police or fire because that's, it's kind of the progression of as emergency services go. And basically we call it put a lot of lines in the water, and the fire came up, and it worked out, and I hit the jackpot. I love it. It's a great job. I love helping people. Love being outside. Love being active. It's exciting too. I don't want people's houses to catch fire, but there is excitement to going into a fire.
Yeah, no, I would assume that there's, like you said, a lot of excitement, a lot of things you get to. I'm curious though, what are some of the harder aspects of that job of being, firefighter, EMT? I'm sure that there's a weight to it as well.
Oh yeah, and it's directly related to my, I guess, advocacy work as the biking fireman. The hardest part is seeing dead children and seeing people dead on the roads. Um, and I've seen too many of them. You may know, you may not know, but actually, death by automobile, until recently, it was the number one cause of death for children. Unfortunately, guns just passed that. But as a father, and even before I became a father, I knew uh, dying, in a motor vehicle crash or getting hit by a car was, something you had to protect your kids from at all times. So, um, yeah, and unfortunately, I see that too often in my work, and that's definitely it's not fun. There's really no way around it. Is no good way about it.
Yeah, no, that is I admire, all the first responders and firefighters and stuff because I can't imagine that. And I've being a therapist, I've done a little bit of crisis work and trauma work with people that have, you know, experienced some of that stuff. And man, that's heavy. That's hard stuff. So again, I commend you for the work that you do, brother. That's hard stuff. So, but
I
I
appreciate
think,
that.
yeah, and I think, kind of like you said, the advocacy work that you do. Talk a little bit about that. What are you trying to do, on that front as far as safer streets and helping people?
Yeah, so I've been biking to work for a long time now, and I'm used to it, I guess. And as I was biking, I started to realize how much I enjoyed it and how much it kind of changed my life. I made it the first 25, almost 30 years of my life, and you just get in the car and you go. It's kind of what you do. And then when you get outside of the car and you start riding, you really see things, or I did at least, see things very differently. So I wanted to encourage more people to ride because I felt like it was beneficial, not only for your own physical health, your mental health, but also the environment, the community. One of the reasons I started biking was to save money, to be honest. Um, but yeah, so I wanted more people to do it. But then I realized if I was going to encourage people to be riding bikes, you know, I know more people are going to get hurt because especially where I live, there is almost no bike infrastructure. There's no protected bike lanes anywhere. There's a few paths and everything, but they're not interconnected. So you have to ride on roads. So I realized what I wanted to do was encourage people to ride, but at the same time, I need to try and make the road safer because I'm going to feel pretty terrible if someone tells me, "Hey, I started riding because of you," and then they go out and get hit by a car. So yeah, so I just advocate for in our area. I'm trying to get rail to trail conversions. I think the best answer for bike safety is to separate bikes from cars. And I'm trying to see if we can get more bike lanes and stuff like that. And then on a little bit away from biking, I'm part of the New Jersey the Vision Zero Alliance for New Jersey. I don't know if you're familiar with Vision Zero, but it's pretty much a concept that there's really no reason anyone needs to die on the roads. We can create safe systems so that when people make mistakes, they don't have to be fatal. Every time there's a crash or something, people look for blame, but really, people make mistakes. We have to accept that and design so that those mistakes aren't fatal. Yes, I don't know if that makes sense. I could talk about a lot of it, but I think I see things from a different perspective. Trying to share that perspective with more people.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. That's how I kind of came across your Instagram. At first I was intrigued. You got a really cool logo and your name and everything, the Biking Fireman. So I was like, what's this about? And then
Yeah,
yeah, just all the videos that you show, and for sure, I think it adds a very unique and needed perspective of like the streets and the bike lanes and everything and the lack thereof, right? And just how you show it. How's how has like your work been received? Are people like stop talking about this, or I mean, I know you're just still going, right? But yeah, how is it received with a lot of the people?
yeah, I would say overall positively. There's definitely, I think one of the biggest things with Instagram and putting yourself out there like this is there's a fear of judgment, and there's judgment. You can feel it. People say it. Especially I'm a firefighter. Guys aren't shy about sharing how they feel about things. So I take some ribbing. I get made fun of, but overall, even when people do make fun of me or something like that, you know, I think it resonates with a lot of people, especially because at the end of the day, the main things I'm talking about are trying to make trails. Like, how could you really argue against that? And trying to stop kids and people from dying on the roads. So you can get people can get into the details of what they like and don't like. But overall, it's hard to argue against, I think. So it's pretty well received, but there's definitely it can be challenging at times.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. Um, yeah, talk to me about the rail to trail aspect. I came across that a little while ago, and it's such a brilliant idea. They've done a little bit of that out here where I live, in Utah. They've converted some old rail lines into trails, and those are some of the most beautiful trails that we have. But yeah, what do you do, and like what's kind of the advocacy work that you do for that, and how can people get involved with that?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with this. If you want to get involved, I started a nonprofit organization called Union County Connects. You can find us at unioncountyconnects.org. And that is pretty much directly what we're trying to do is get the rail trail conversions. I think it was 1919 was the maximum build out of the railway network in America. And New Jersey was actually the most densely a built out system. So there in New Jersey, there's a lot of railroads that were built, and now a lot of them are abandoned or unused. So where I live in Kenilworth, it was called the Raleigh Valley Railroad, and it was at one point 11 miles of railroad track. Now what's left is 7 miles of right of way. A train hasn't run there since 1992, and as far as rail trail conversions go, it's what we call low hanging fruit. It's great in that it's already owned by the government. The New Jersey Department of Transportation owns it. And what we've done is funny because I've lived in this area my whole life, and I didn't really even know or think about the railroad. Like, I went over the abandoned tracks all the time in my car and bike, but I didn't start to think about where it went or what could be done with it until I came across this rail trails idea. And it's a home run. I mean, it would connect 7 miles of Union County, and in Union County, just for reference, we have almost 600,000 people in a pretty small area, so it would connect a lot of people. Yeah, and so Union County Connects, we're raising awareness. We're working with the National Rails Trails Conservancy. We're applying for grants. Our biggest victory recently was the state awarded $1.5 million to start work on a section of it. So it's happening. It's exciting. It's a lot of fun.
That's awesome, and I think, like you said, yeah, it just makes sense, right? Like if all these old abandoned trails they're not being used, and the thing that really intrigues me about, the railroad lines is they're not crazy steep either. I mean, we have a lot of mountains and stuff out here, but any railroad, you can't go past a certain percentage of decline or increase, right? And so it's just makes a nice, smooth, easy riding path for a lot of people.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know if there's a book the founder of Rail Trails put out, Peter Hendrick, I think his name is, and he talks about that. Basically, the railroads when they were building them, it made more sense to spend the money on grading than it did to spend the money on fuel and maintenance later on. So if you're on a rail trail, you can go like actually, for example, the Raleigh Valley Railroad, it ends in a town called Summit, and it's called Summit because it's the summit of a small mountain. So if you're driving or running or riding on the roads up there, you're climbing a mountain. But if you go on the Raleigh Valley Railroad, which I've done, not by bike because it's all overgrown, but it's just a gentle slope all the way up the hill. So it's cool.
Love it. No, that's great. And I think, yeah, and hopefully, that the Rail to Trail organization, I've seen that they do a ton of work, and I've seen, isn't there like an initiative or a goal to try to connect like a coast to coast, right, all across America
Yeah,
using old railroad
the
trade.
Great American Rail Trail.
Yeah, how's that
Yeah,
been going? Do you know the progress of that?
yeah. So I mean, I follow that loosely, I guess. I know there's big gaps in it, but I know, like, for example, where you're in Colorado.
I'm in Utah. Yep.
Utah. Yeah. So in Pennsylvania, it's called the Great Allegheny Passage. Like, that's a pretty big section. So there's a lot of big, long sections that are done. But on that one, I think it starts at D.C. and goes out maybe towards Oregon or Washington. But for example, like in Montana, I think like all Montana, there's no connection right now. So, but it can be done. Yeah, I think like for Union County Connects, for example, like we started with a vision, like what this could be, right? And most of it's not there right now, but I think if you start with a vision, like the Great American Rail Trail does, that inspires people and gets you going. What can be done, and you figure out how to do it from there.
Yeah. Well, and also too, like you say, in the motivation of just the safety aspect, but gets more people out there, but in a safe manner that people, I'm a strong believer that more people would bike if they had a safe way to do it, right? Just the fear of um, being, hit by a car or something. That's deterring a lot of people. So hopefully,
Yeah,
as more people get involved and start, waking up to that idea that more can happen. So I love it. That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah. No, that's
Cool.
definitely something I come across. Like people, since I've been doing this biking, it's been like almost a little over 2 years. I've been doing the biking fireman, advocacy, and that's the main thing people tell me is like, yeah, I would love to do that, but it's just not safe. And they're right. I don't know if you know, I got hit by a car on my way to work. Geez, I just passed the 2 year anniversary. Um, I got hit by a car, broke my collarbone, and it's not safe. I wouldn't want my wife and kids riding to work like I do. So that's what I was keeping in the back of my mind. Like I want to make this safe. I want to be able to send my kids out here. And right now, I wouldn't want them doing what I'm doing, but I fight fires for a living, so I have a higher risk tolerance. But I know not everyone else does.
Yeah, no, and yeah, absolutely. That's scary. You broke your collarbone. Did you recover from that? How you feeling?
Oh, it was a long road. I was out of work for 3 months initially. I had some hardware put in. They put screws and a plate in my collarbone, and then I went back to work after that. But the problem was the the hardware was basically, it's like it was almost sticking out of the skin, like it was right below the skin, and I had to put on my air pack for work, and it would sit on there, and it hurt a lot. So then I went back and had another surgery in March of 2022, and had it taken out. So so yeah, it was two surgeries, and it took about almost a year till I was fully recovered. But it feels good now. It's just a little numb. And now I have to be careful if I pick my kids up and put them on my shoulders. Like sometimes it hurts a little there, but I'm just I'm just happy to be alive, to be honest. So
Yeah, no,
it's good.
no doubt. And I'm sure that there was some PTSD that came from that, but you're still biking even after that. I'm sure like getting back on the bike and on the road, that was quite the experience mentally, right?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I didn't. I almost had no thought of stopping biking after that. Like it was just like, okay, I need to get better so I can get back on it. And it wasn't difficult to get back on. It was difficult stopping, because I'm always kind of on the go. I'm always doing something. I'm always an active guy. But when I broke my collarbone, everything stopped. Everything stopped, and that was the most difficult part. But getting back on, honestly, the first day back was funny. We had a big nor'easter. I think it was. Let's see, that the crash was in July, and I went back in maybe September, October, something like that. And this huge storm came in. And the first day back, I rode in the wind and rain, and then I got detailed the first day back. So I had to carry I went to my first firehouse, loaded up my gear into my trailer, and I biked another 2 miles in the pouring rain with pulling my gear. And it was one of those things where it was just like, it was miserable, but it's, there's like joy in the misery of, I did it, especially after sitting around for 3 months before that. So yeah, it was challenging, but challenges are good in my opinion.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I think that when you have an injury, I've had multiple injuries too, and when you're out of just your regular routine, you kind of miss that, like you said, the misery. You kind of miss the struggle of things. You're like, and then when you get back into it, you're like, yes, this is, even though this is hard, I appreciate this. Like this is fun, almost.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's funny. I'll tell you a quick story about when I first started. When I committed, it was my New Year's resolution in 2020 to not drive a car anymore. And literally, I think it was January 20th. So I'm only a couple weeks into this. I'm still like waking up every morning, like, what am I doing? Why don't I just drive? And we had a huge fire in January. It was actually, I think, the biggest loss ever in Elizabeth history. It was a $40 million loss because it was a giant trucking facility. And the call came in, I want to say it was like 11 o'clock at night. And I was one of the first people there. I was on ladder 3 at the time in a bucket. And we got there and we do our thing. And the fire keeps going out of control. We were there all night. And I'm up almost, I'm the 90 feet in the air in the bucket now in January. It's like 10 degrees shooting water out of this thing. And I didn't pull back into the firehouse until 6 in the morning. And then I packed up my stuff and I rode my bike home, and I'm riding my bike home and I'm like, this is miserable. Like, I'm tired. I'm freezing. Like, what am I doing? but, but like you said, I don't know how to describe it, but it was very gratifying. It was, at that point, I'm like, if I can do this on this day, in January, there's no reason I can't do this all the time. And, like I said, over almost 4 years later now, I'm still going at it.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, and for sure it puts that in perspective. Like, yeah, I was able to accomplish this, so I can do it on any day. And I would think too, and again, and a little bit in my profession, like sometimes I'll have really tough days or some dealing with some hard stories and stuff, but just the ability to jump on my bike and ride home, it just kind of helps me deal with my day and process it in a way that when I get home, it's kind of like dealt with, right? Like I've processed all that and it's out, and then I'm ready to just kind of be with my family or whatever. So I think the aspect of bike commuting kind of helps you, you know, reset in a way.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny. I think I said to you, you know, my motivation for this was to start doing this was like save money, exercise kind of thing. But I realized that very quickly when I started biking home. I was working on the ambulance, and it's when you get out of work at 7 or 7:30, 8 o'clock after riding around an ambulance all day, and then you get in your car and you just sit there in traffic. It was so frustrating. Like I go around this all day, and then you got the day to deal with. But yeah, when I started riding the bike home, first of all, it was almost just as fast, and second of all, like it's a way to leave work at work because any profession, whether first responder, therapist, anything, you don't want to bring your work home. So it's a great way to, like you say, ride it out literally before you get home.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's awesome. So, yeah, what are some other, mental health or just kind of overall wellness benefits that you've seen as you've been biking a lot more?
You know, um, I think we live in this world where everything's fast. Get things done. What's next? Biking is really a way to slow down and enjoy it. I ride around with my kids all the time, and there's so many things that we just stop and look at and talk about. We have a lot of good little moments that we wouldn't have otherwise if the car was the only way we got around. Um, for me, I think that's the biggest thing. Slowing down, appreciating thing, and then also we talk a lot about like I talk to my wife and stuff about how do you like take care of ourselves, and for me, like exercise is always it, or even just like being present, right? Um, so I'll even go for runs. If I'm having a bad day, like I just know I need to go for a bike ride, go for a run, and it turns it around. It might not be a cure or a fix all, but it's always a day is always better when I spend some time on the bike. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm the same way, and I try to bike almost every day as well, or yeah, do some kind of physical exercise. It just helps kind of keep your mind straight, and there's actually a lot of research about kind of that rhythmic bilateral stimulation, and it just helps you kind of calm your brain, calm your mind, calm your body to a point where you just feel good, right? It just helps with
Yeah,
everything. So yeah,
yeah,
that's great.
yeah. It's funny. So biking actually isn't like my primary means of exercise. I would say, like I'm more of a runner. Like I run for exercise. I've done marathons, but what I try and advocate for is if you work in movement into your normal day, like you're getting exercise without even realizing it. So like even if I don't do any exercise on a day, at least I rode my bike to work. And your day is just better overall.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge advocate of that as well. Just kind of building it into your day, kind of baking it in, right? It's just kind of like an ingredient to your day. If you don't really, to go to the gym or to like take time to get out and go for a run, sometimes that can be hard to do. You're just like, oh, I just don't got the time to do this. But if you're like, oh, I'm going to work, I'm gonna be sitting in a car anyways for that amount of time. I might as well be moving my body, and getting that
Yeah,
benefit as well. So yeah,
yeah. And if you think about, I always think about big picture, right? If more people could do that, like we'd be so much better off, like as a society. Like we'd all be healthier mentally and physically. We'd be happier. Things would be better. There's a lot of benefits to it if we can. And the way I look at it too is there's so much room for improvement because right now, for example, in Union County, the last traffic study or whatever they did, something like less than 0.5% of people walk or bike to work. So we can only go up. If we get just a few more people, it's going to keep going up and up.
That's a good perspective to have. Absolutely. You got you can't go much lower than that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I just wanted to ask the last thing, well, a couple last things, but tell me about this 36-inch bike you have, the Dirty Sixer. What is this about?
Oh man. So not long after actually I had my crash, I forget how I guess Instagram got me. I must have targeted me. There was an ad for this the Dirty Sixer, and the guy's name is David Folich. I think Folich, you say his name. And he was making, but he's a tall guy. He's like 6'6". Oh, I don't know if I mentioned this. I'm 6'8". I'm a big guy. um, and he's 6'6", and he actually had a bike crash where he, I think, broke his ankle. And he attributed the bike crash partially to a missized bike, and he realized basically that they don't make bikes for people this big, especially for a larger market. I mean, I guess if you make them custom, you can make them, but then it gets expensive. It's hard to get to. So he's made bikes for people like Shaq and NBA players and stuff like that. And anyway, so after the crash, I got an advertisement for the big bike, and I was like, you know what, I I'm gonna treat myself because the bike I was riding, I literally bought it 10 years ago for I want to say $250, and I rode it into the ground and I got my use out of it. But it was a little too small, and this bike, it's got 36-inch wheels. It looks huge, and when I first got it, I'm like, this is too big. But man, when I got on it, it's comfortable. It's actually built for my size, and it's a lot of fun. You can't miss me. When I got hit on the car, the guy's like, "Oh, I didn't see you," which was crazy. But I feel like it's a little more there's a little more visibility for me being a big guy on a big bike. It's hard to miss now.
Yeah, no, I've started following their account and those bikes are awesome, man. I mean, I'm a taller guy. I'm 6'5", but so I don't necessarily think I need that big of tires, but I would love to just try one out. They look so cool how big they are.
I gotta recommend it because so mine's it comes in 5 sizes and mine's a 4XL. So it goes down. The frames go down in size. The wheels stay the same, and then it's cool. It has like even the handles are like bigger for bigger hands. The foot pedals are bigger for bigger feet. It's very comfortable.
I love it. That's so cool. And I think again, it just speaks to the need of getting everybody out on a bike, right? No matter how small or how big you are. So that's great that they do that.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of fun.
Cool. Well, Steve, any last tips that you'd give to anybody like either wanting to get involved with advocacy work or getting into bike commuting or just biking in general? What kind of tips would you give to someone just starting out? What advice would you have for them?
Well, so let's see. If you want to if you want to try and ride your bike to work, what I'd say is at some point, just do it. You're gonna run into problems. You're gonna make mistakes. You're gonna get wet. Something's gonna go wrong. But at the end of the day, that's how you learn. Like I learned how to carry my gear by trying it and messing up and dropping it. I learned how to not get wet by getting wet. um, so I would say it's you can build things up in your mind very easily to make it seem impossible, but it's not impossible if you want to be a bike commuter to give it a try. And then what I would say is, share it with people, tell people about it. One of, I think, my mistakes or problems was I was almost afraid, to be honest, to tell people that I was bike commuting. I tried to hide it for a long time, because I was worried about, judgment and all that kind of stuff. Um, but share it. I think there's a lot of people who want to do something like this. I think people intrinsically recognize the value of it. So the more people that get out and try it, and the more people that share their stories with it, it's just gonna build like a snowball. And I think we can really change our culture in a good way.
Yeah, that's great advice. I kind of had the same thing when I first started biking to work. I was like, I don't want to let people know or anything. But then I started telling people about it, and lo and behold, another person starts biking, two or three other people start biking, and it was just a kind of a cool, ripple effect with that, and a lot of, and then just talking to people about it too. Like, yeah, and the kids that I work with too, they're like, "You ride your bike to work?" I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely, I love it." And so it kind of plants that idea that it's not just, for recreation. It's you can use it as a mode of transportation and a tool. So it's
Yeah,
great.
yeah, and just I don't know for your listeners, I guess and it's interesting to me. I'm a stone cold introvert. Like I I I don't like big crowds. I don't usually talk to a lot of people, but getting on a bike, like it's an open. I I become less of an introvert, I guess, from being on a bike. Like I'm just open to talking to people all the time because people are asking questions and talking, and I enjoy it. So it really it's opened a lot of doors and a lot of possibilities for me as a person that probably wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Yep. No, absolutely. When you put yourself out there, it's kind of hard to miss a 6'8" guy on a bike, right? With a vest and a helmet. So you're kind of putting yourself out there anyways for people
Yeah,
to just, opens the conversation and you're like, yeah, I love it. So yeah, that's such a good thing.
yeah, and trust me, as a guy who's been tall his whole life, I try and hide, but I can't. So it's good. There's really not. I mean, aside from getting hit by cars, there's not many downsides to biking. It's just a lot of good that comes from it.
Yeah. I love it. Great conversation. Well, thanks so much for taking the time, Stephen. I appreciate it. I'll continue to follow, on Instagram. You're the Biking Fireman. You're doing great work. Keep up that great work, and we'll just stay in touch, man. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Zach. Have a good one.
All right, you too.
Bye bye.
Okay. I'd like to thank again Stephen Dunn, the Biking Fireman, for joining me on this week's session. He has a lot of great wisdom, a lot of good perspectives on things as a fireman. And I appreciate his perspective and his attitude of wanting to make a change, right? He sees some pretty horrendous stuff as a fireman, as a first responder, and he wants to do something about it. So I think that's pretty incredible. A lot of times people would just say, it is what it is. There's nothing I can do, especially in his community where he said 0.5% of people walk or bike to work, and how he views that as kind of as a challenge, right? And then it can only go up from there. So awesome insight and motivation for us, with anything that we're dealing with in life, of again wanting to make changes and not just standing by and watching things happen to us, but wanting to advocate and be there to help facilitate that change and talking about it. So great stuff. Thanks again, everyone, for the support. Like, share, subscribe, follow, review, share it with others. That's how we can help this grow. And again, whenever you're going through a hard experience or difficult times in your life, jump on that bike and ride this out.